Welcome to part 2 of our hour-long education special. Charter schools, the cure, the cancer, or the alternative. Charter schools are defined as experimental public schools for children from kindergarten through to grade 12, created and organized by teachers, parents, and community leaders. They are considered one of the fastest and most successful growing reforms in the country. The first charter school opened its doors in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1992, and now a decade and a half later, nearly 4,600 charter schools serving over 1.4 million children across 40 states and the District of Columbia exist. There are those who say charter schools resolve many of the issues within public school education, enabling greater involvement from community and parents, and are a healthy competitive addition to a highly criticized public school system that is bleeding and failing too many children. Others argue charter schools are little more than a move to privatize public schools, that in urban centers in New York, they are run by a white corporate elite and that they are anti-union, and the same success could have been achieved with innovative public schools. And then there is the money trail. The recent bailout ushered in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and with that, $4.5 billion is directed towards education in New York State, with $1.5 billion for education in New York City alone. So this morning we ask this: charter schools, are they the cure, the cancer, or the alternative? To examine this question, we're joined by former public school teacher and now National Director of Public Affairs of the Knowledge is Power program, known as KIPP, Steve Mancini. There are 82 KIPP charter schools and there are 6 in New York. We're also joined by former teacher and university professor Sam Anderson, also formerly the Director of Education for Medgar Evers College's Center for Law and Social Justice, and currently of the New York Commission on Public Education in New York City and the Black New Yorkers for Educational Excellence. We're also joined by Dr. Sheila Evans-Tranumn, Associate Commissioner for Education, who will be talking to us specifically about the money trail and the ARRA, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And then we go live and open up our lines to New York and ask for New York's educators, teachers, principals, teachers' aides, parents, students to join this conversation with their perspective, their views and their questions. That's our conversation this morning. Welcome to part 2 of that special. So we say good morning and welcome to Dr. Sheila Evans-Tranumn, Steve Mancini and Sam Anderson. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Dr. Evans-Tranumn, let's start with you. It often does start with the money. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act has meant a huge amount of money, it would seem, when it comes to public education. Just take us through the figures and break down what is going where.
Thank you, Esther. It's good to be here this morning. I think the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, most citizens don't realize that there is a large chunk of money in that pot to help support education. We've been given 2 directives. Number 1, to save jobs, because that's what the Recovery Act is about, and number 2, to close the achievement gap. So I think our president was very forward-thinking in terms of putting these dollars for education in this big economic stimulus plan. So we're stimulating educational initiatives for children. In the state of New York, we will get through formula, through Title I, approximately $4.5 billion of that. As you indicated, about $1.5 billion will come here into New York City. So to break down, quick breakdown is in the Bronx is expected to get $211 million. The borough of Brooklyn is expected to get about $275 million additional dollars. Manhattan, $99 million. Queens, $106 million. Staten Island, $14 million. For a total of that $100 billion. And this is driven by formula, by poverty, by census count. The formula comes to us from the United States government, and we then dispense that money. Also, there's an additional $4 million for homeless families, because, Esther, we have seen a rise in homelessness since all of this economic crisis has started. And then finally, there's another pot of money that New York State is going to compete for. It's called Race to the Top. And those funds are expected to come down around December. We're in the process of writing that application. The governor will submit it, but we expect to be one of the states that will actually make it to the top and not just race there.
Okay, so then it sounds like an awful lot of money. Do we have any sense of what is going where, whether there is a differentiation between what goes to public schools and what goes to charter schools?
Charter schools and charter schools in New York City come through me, so we have a wonderful crop of charter schools. They are eligible to receive these funds because all schools that are eligible to receive Title I funds will also get American Recovery and Reinvestment Act funds.
Can you just define for us very quickly what Title I is?
Title I has been changed. The name changes throughout the years. It may be right now we call it Title I. Some people know it as No Child Left Behind funds, different names. But what it means is that there are children who are 2 years behind in their academic years, and what we need to do is to catch them up. It takes money to do that. Also, children in high poverty areas need some extra help and support, not because poverty is an indicator of academic failure, but because of poverty, many children don't have equal access into those things that would allow them to be successful. So the Title I funds come in through census count, through poverty indicators as well. Okay,
so you were taking us through, in terms of that money, whether there's a straight divide, half goes to charter schools, half goes to public schools education. You were just taking it, breaking down for us who gets what.
Yes. So charter schools would get their share based upon their population.
Right, okay. And so when are schools eligible to apply for that money?
Well, we have up online, we've put online how much people are able to get. And so we're working out the final figures, and we will then begin to send the money to them. They don't have to apply for these funds.
Right, and so I understand there is a limitation for when the money needs to be spent. Just take us through what that situation is.
Many people were excited about the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act and what it could do. We have to remember this is a stimulus package. It is to stimulate the economy, to make sure people keep their jobs. It is not a long-term funding plan, so it is only for 2 years. What we have to tell school districts is you have to use this money, but we would not recommend that you would go out and hire more people, because at the end of 2 years, this money is gone. We have to show what it has done before the government will even consider doing another stimulus package. New York State is one of those states that will be audited, not only by the U.S. Department of Education, but also by the Office of the Inspector General. So we will have auditors and monitors coming into the state of New York, tracking these dollars all the way down to the classroom level to make sure that they are spent accurately. First time we've had this kind of close screening of where Title I federal dollars go.
Okay, so that's part of the money trails. Steve Mancini, let me turn to you, Public Director, National Director of Public Affairs of KIPP. Knowledge is Power Program, that's what KIPP stands for. 82 charter schools, of which there are 6 in New York. Certainly when you go online, look at the background information, it has its own record of excellence, comes highly recommended by a number of very highly notable people. Talk about the importance of charter schools and the progress they have made that you have seen with KIPP.
Sure, Esther, and it's great to be on the show. And you know, essentially, charter schools, if you boil it down, it's freedom for accountability, giving educators more freedom to innovate for children. But in these charter schools, they're held more accountable for results. And as you said, we have 6 schools that Commissioner Tranumn oversees in New York City. And want to mention that we see her as a real champion on the accountability side of really holding charter schools' feet to the fire for getting results for kids. And at KIPP, we've had schools for 15 years, and over 80% of our students come from low-income families, about 90% from either black or Hispanic families, and over 85% have gone on to college. So KIPP schools are showing nationwide in New York and across the country that demography is not destiny, and that all students, when given great teachers, a longer day, and a real focus on college, they can